The world told them they were less than human. But in the cockpit of a P-51 Mustang, with the sky screaming around them, they were gods. Their story is not just one of war, but of a battle fought on two fronts. One against the iron fist of fascism in the skies over Europe, and another against the suffocating shadow of prejudice in their own homeland. This is the story of the Tuskegee Airmen, a testament to the fact that courage has no color, and the human spirit, when tested, can soar above any storm. It all began not on a battlefield, but in the sweltering heat of a segregated Alabama airfield. It was called the Tuskegee Experiment, a name that dripped with condescension. The prevailing belief in the United States military, a belief etched into policy and practice, is that black men lacked the intelligence, the discipline, and the courage to operate complex machinery like a fighter plane. So, they created the 99th Fighter Squadron, a segregated unit, to prove their theory correct. They were an experiment, a collection of men set up in a system that fully expected them to fail. But those who gathered at Tuskegee were not there to be lab rats. They were there to fly. They were driven by a fire that prejudice could not extinguish. Its desire to serve a country that did not yet fully serve them, and to prove once and for all that the content of their character and the quality, their skill, were the only measures that mattered. The training was brutal, designed to weed out any hint of weakness. The Alabama sun beat down on the tarmac, and the weight of a nation's skepticism was heavier than any flight gear. Every cadet knew that their individual failure would be seen as the failure of their entire race. This immense pressure forged them into something extraordinary. They were supported by a backbone of equally dedicated ground crews, the mechanics, armorers, and technicians who worked tirelessly under the same discriminatory conditions. These unsung heroes knew that a pilot's life depended on their precision. They treated every bolt, every wire, and every fuel line not just as a piece of a machine, but as a sacred trust. A loose rivet wasn't just a maintenance issue, it was a betrayal of a brother. This synergy, this unbreakable bond between the men in the sky and the men on the ground, became the bedrock of their future success. When they were finally deployed to the war in Europe, the skepticism followed them. They were given secondary planes and assigned mundane patrol missions, far from the real fight. The military command was still waiting for the experiment to fail, but failure was not in their vocabulary. On July 2, 1943, the world's perception began to crack during a mission over Sicily. A young pilot named Lieutenant Samuel Rivers found himself facing a German Focke-Wulf 190, one of the Luftwaffe's most feared fighters. He was not supposed to win. According to the prejudiced doctrines of his own military, he should have been outmaneuvered, outsmarted, and shot out of the sky. But in the deadly ballet of aerial combat, theories and prejudices are meaningless. All that matters is skill, instinct, and nerve. Lieutenant Rivers, a product of that sweltering Alabama airfield, met the enemy head-on, his hands steady on the controls. He danced with the Focke-Wulf in a terrifying climb, the G-forces crushing him into his seat. With the burst of his machine guns, he tore into the enemy aircraft, sending it spiraling into the Mediterranean Sea in a plume of smoke and fire. Hey, was the squadron's first aerial victory, resounding statement that echoed from the shores of Sicily all the way back to the halls of the Pentagon. They could fly, and they could fight. Soon, the 99th was joined by other Tuskegee-trained squadrons, forming the 332nd Fighter Group. They were finally given the plane that would define their legacy, the P-51 Mustang. To distinguish themselves, and as a bold symbol of their pride, they painted the tails of their aircraft a brilliant, defiant red. Cane in the skies over Europe, they became a legend. They were known as the Red Tails. Their primary mission was one of the most dangerous of the war, escorting massive formations of B-17 and B-2 for bombers deep into the heart of Germany. For bomber crews, the journey into enemy territory was a harrowing ordeal. A flight through a gauntlet of anti-aircraft fire and relentless attacks from German fighters. They called the Luftwaffe fighters the little friends with grim irony. But when the bomber crews looked out their windows and saw the flash of red on the tails of their escorts, a wave of relief would wash over them. The red tails flew with a discipline that was second to none. Their commanders had instilled in them a simple, sacred rule: never leave the bombers. While other fighter groups would often break formation to chase enemy planes for personal glory, the red tails stuck to their charges like guardian angels. They built a wall of steel around the lumbering bombers, fighting off attackers with breathtaking skill and unwavering resolve. Their reputation grew so immense that bomber crews began specifically requesting the red-tailed angels for their missions. The statistics were staggering. The average fighter group lost around 46 of the bombers they were assigned to protect. The 332nd Fighter Group, the Red Tails, lost only 27 over the course of the entire war, rate significantly lower than any other escort group. They were, without question, the best in the business. Their list of accomplishments became the stuff of legend. They flew over 1,500 missions, earned more than 150 distinguished flying crosses, and destroyed over 260 enemy aircraft, 112 of them in aerial combat. In one of the most remarkable feats of the air war, they became the only American fighter group to shoot down 3 of the revolutionary German Me-262 jet fighters in a single day. These jets were the future of aerial warfare, faster and more powerful than any propeller plane. The pilots of the Luftwaffe, seeing a propeller-driven Mustang on their tail was an impossibility. But the Red Tails made the impossible possible, using superior tactics and sheer audacity to conquer a technological marvel. Proved that it wasn't the machine that mattered most, but the heart and skill of the person flying it. For every victory they won in the air, they had to return to a battle on the ground. They were heroes in the sky, but when they landed, they were often treated as second-class citizens. They faced segregation in their own bases, denied access to officers' clubs, and subjected to the same racial slurs they had endured their entire lives. They were fighting and dying for a nation that championed freedom and democracy abroad, while denying them those very same principles at home. This was their second war, a silent, painful struggle against the very country they had sworn to protect. But they fought this war with the same dignity and discipline they showed in the cockpit. They did not break. They did not yield. They simply let their actions speak louder than the hatred they faced. When the war ended, they returned home not to ticker-tape parades, but to a society still deeply divided by race. Their incredible record was largely ignored, their story buried under the weight of prevailing prejudice. But you cannot bury the truth forever. The undeniable, documented success of the Tuskegee Airmen was a powerful argument that could no longer be dismissed. Their performance was a shining beacon that exposed the lie of racial inferiority. In 1948, President Harry S. Truman, influenced in part by their flawless record and the injustice they had faced, signed Executive Order 9981, officially desegregating the United States Armed Forces. The experiment had not just succeeded. It had shattered the very foundation of the hypothesis. Decades passed, and their story slowly began to surface, passed down through families and championed by historians who refused to let their legacy fade. Finally, in 2007, the nation gave them the honor they had long been denied. In the Grand Rotunda of the U.S. Capitol, the surviving Tuskegee Airmen, now old men with weathered hands that once held the fate of bomber crews, were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest civilian honor bestowed by the United States. It was a moment of profound, long overdue recognition. The salute given to them that day by the President of the United States was not just a gesture of respect. It was an apology, a thank you, and an affirmation from a nation that had finally caught up to the truth they had proven 60 years earlier. Their legacy is not written in the pages of military strategy books alone. It is etched into the fabric of civil rights, A powerful reminder that true greatness is found in overcoming adversity, both from without and from within. They were told they couldn't fly, so they soared. They were told they were inferior, so they became the best. And in doing so, they not only helped win a war, they forever changed the soul of a nation.